Oh, Andy Lou, my man, how you doing?
Oh, living the dream. 2 Monday Night Football games. What can go wrong?
Derek Carr, 2-0. My guy. My
You're not
guy.
serious. You're not serious.
Part of me is a little serious.
Jimmy G, 1-1.
Let's be honest. This is for friend of the show, Sheed, the icon, the purveyor of Warriors World. I want Derek Carr to succeed purely despite him. Just gonna leave it at that right now. You know what? I don't think Derek Carr's a special player. Like, I think he's a solid quarterback, but I got so tired of people saying Jimmy G was better or this or he sucks. I'm like, the Raiders are the biggest clown show on earth. Put him in like an average team and he looks just as good as Kirk Cousins. That's all I'm going for right now.
Yeah.
I don't even know why it matters to me so much. I think I'm just sensitive to the slander.
Derek Carr is definitely better than Jimmy G. I mean, even look at history. It's inarguable that one guy has a higher upside than Jimmy G. Lightyear's podcast today brought to you by NFL arguments of very, very mid-tier quarterbacks, of which Brock Purdy is not part of that.
2000. Welcome back to 2018, guys. Yeah, exactly.
That's so good.
No, Brock's better than both. I'm in on Brock. I'm all in on the Brock experience. And man, we're getting very close to Warriors camp. Do you know the Warriors open camp 2 weeks from today? 2 weeks, 14 days. Most people listening to this will be 13 days. I mean, you might as well get on your sneakers, put on your Adonal Foyle jersey. It's time.
Wow. Are you counting it down like the freaking beginning of the show countdown? You should just put a marker up 14 and counting. It's about damn time. Let's go.
It's getting close. We're getting there. I mean, we talked Dwight on the last episode. We'll get to a little Dwight stuff, but like the one piece of news here, I think it's worth calling out is Ramona Shelbourne said on Zach Lowe's podcast that the Warriors are exchanging numbers with Klay Thompson about a contract extension. My understanding is that they have open contract extension talks with Klay Thompson. This is a slow process. This idea that has been eligible for a while and they haven't done anything. No, they've started talking. They've exchanged proposals. There's no hurry to this discussion. The optionality goes both ways.
Look at that.
All right.
Look at that shit-eating grin on your face.
The minute I saw optionality, I'm sitting here going, is her source Joe? Is it Kirk? Is it Mike? Because nobody outside of the fucking Warriors front office uses the term optionality. Meanwhile, they can't stop saying that word right now. Like that's my biggest takeaway from this offseason. This team loves to. You've worked at a few startups, right? You've heard, like, you know how people drink the Kool-Aid and all repeat the same company line over and over again?
Do you think Sam AI is coming for the world? Do you think AI is just machine learning? Do you think machine learning is going to be the next big thing? Sorry, We're gonna machine learn how to make the next Steph Curry.
I
feel like Joe has said that. He has said, why do we have to pay Klay $140 million? Why can't we just build a clone? Why can't we just AI?
Wasn't that the entire two timelines thing where it was just we're gonna win now, we're gonna develop these new ones, we're gonna have a new Steph, Klay, and Dre. It's just that big because we're the best organization in the league. You know, like isn't that the whole thing? And on the one hand, I will always appreciate the fact that they're trying, but I think you and I don't know. They're humans. They're not robots, right?
Everyone has watched sports for a very long time. You can change however much you want to change, but it's pretty obvious when you get a elite generational tier of player like Steph, and then the chemistry between Steph, Klay, and Dre, you got to keep them together, right? You're not going to just replicate that. It feels like this Klay contract extension thing has been around for a while. I don't know, Sam's sources, right? I feel like the conversation has been around there. Why is it being thrown out now in mid-September? I guess that's my question to you.
The context of it, because in the current NBA, dudes don't hit free agency. They sign an extension before they hit free agency. Steph did it. Draymond did it. James Harden's currently throwing a temper tantrum because he's not getting the contract he wants. But that's the same thing. Damian Lillard cannot get to Miami because he signed an early extension. He has 4 years left on his contract. What's the trendy thing? It's pre-agency. I'm like, no, you just signed an extension. Like, that sounds cool, but they all say that sort of thing. And so the reality is Klay is a Hall of Fame player who's going up on the last year of his contract. It's fair to wonder what's going on there, even though my personal feeling on the matter is he's been with the Warriors so long, it's not a big deal. Like, this isn't a guy who's been with a team for 3 years saying, oh man, he hasn't signed an extension, he's going to walk,
Yeah. That would be the last thing from my mind. I mean, it's not even a Jordan Poole situation where, again, he didn't really need to sign it, right? But he'd
been there 3 years. That's the point.
Right,
like he's like, you better lock him up, or he's going to see what he can get on the market ASAP.
You could argue, shit, maybe they should have seen what he got on the market. But again, that's hindsight's 2020. I think at the time it was kind of a fair deal. With this Klay one, though, yeah, I guess it's weird that they bring it back now. What does optionality even mean? Like, what does that even mean? What are the options? The options are just to re-sign him. Are there other options? Are they going to trade Klay? Are they going to not offer him what he wants? I assume Klay's not going to ask for something ridiculous, right? I assume they're going to find a fair deal there. So
I'm sure he is asking for something ridiculous.
I'm sure he'll get to somewhere that it makes sense, is what I'm trying to say. At some point, right? He will get to somewhere it makes sense, but I'm sure he's asking for a max now. So, yeah, I don't know. I don't know what optionality means, dude.
I mean,
what are the options?
They've only said it 27 to 45 times this summer. So it's not like they've hidden their desires. It's pretty clear. Chris Paul could be gone in 12 months. Klay Thompson could be gone in 12 months. Or they could bring them all back. They could run this thing back. They could bring part of it back. They could flip those guys plus Kuminga and picks for Giannis. Maybe. I don't know. The whole idea of optionality is they have options. Like, it's obnoxious. They think they're the first team in NBA history to be like, oh, we could re-sign the guy or we could go in a different direction. Like, yes, that's exactly how it works. You either re-sign the guy or you go in a different direction. Like, to me, it just sounds like startup jargon where you're trying to sound smarter than you are.
My problem, though, here with me is that I get the Chris Paul optionality stuff. I get the fact that you could do certain things with Chris Paul. If it doesn't work out, they're going to re-sign Klay. Come on. So there are no options. They're going to re-sign.
I mean, it could go multiple ways. You could argue if Klay has another bad year and Moses Moody takes a step, you could argue maybe they flip Klay for someone else and, start the two timelines.
Yeah.
I don't if you're asking me, I don't think that's how it's going to play out. But the idea is like, they're not locked into a 5-year contract today. They could theoretically do that. And I think that's the way they're doing it. Let me throw another angle at you.
Sure.
I think they love that Klay has something to prove and they're not willing to give him a contract. And I think it's actually going to probably bring, I don't want to say the best out of him, but players, when they have a little more motivation, you might get the best version of Klay than what you got the last couple of years.
Yeah, I mean, certainly the last year's version of Klay was kind of tough at times, especially the early version of him being out of shape and kind of ran out of gas there at the end because he was kind of maybe out of shape during the season. So I get it. It looks like he's going to be locked in and ready to go. He's what now, 2-3 years away from the two big injuries that he had. So also his game, right? We talked about this all the time. The game just makes sense the older you get. He's not James Harden. Like his defense has pretty much fallen off already. So I don't think we're thinking that Klay's getting back to an all NBA defender. But like, how James Harden kind of his whole his whole game
It's all
is
quick
built
twitch.
around. Yeah, exactly. And but it's also offense, right? So when his offense is going and you're looking at Harden now, it's the way he has to play where he's the fulcrum of a team. It just makes it so much harder to pay Harden that money that he wants versus Klay. It's like, well, he is not as great of a defender anymore, but he could still shoot the ball. And if you can downsize him to kind of like a 3.5, 4 type of player, like he's still so valuable and he's not asking for the ball. He's not asking to run a whole offense around him. That just fits so much better versus people like Russell Westbrook is another example of like, you got to play his way or you fall off.
Ball dominant. Yeah,
exactly.
William Mitchell goes, optionality just sounds like the Warriors want to have more side pieces than somebody.
Relax.
I mean, yeah, it's true. I think the Klay, like, here's my guess. I don't think the Warriors have offered Klay more than they've offered Draymond or Wiggins. I think they're saying Wiggins took 4,108. Draymond took 4,100. We'll pay you around that. You know, that's kind of what we're willing to pay you. And Klay is going, I want a max. And I don't think he really cares about that as much as he's using it as a starting point leverage-wise. But, I mean, if you're Klay Thompson, you got to look at what Chris Middleton got. Chris Middleton's kind of been rough the last year and change. Just been injured, right? And he's only 1 year older than Klay. And he's still got 31, 32 a year. So I would think that's kind of where it's going. I don't view any of this as contentious. I don't think he's going to sign an extension. I think he's going to gamble it, and I think he's probably going to end up winning more money in the offseason than if he signed it early. And that's just kind of how it breaks. Sometimes you sign a guy early, like Jordan Poole, and you're like, I wish I didn't do that.
Yeah.
And sometimes you sign a guy, you don't sign a guy, and they play up to a level where you have to pay them.
I think the difference between because there's similarities and differences, but I think the similarity with Draymond is that I think end of day, Klay's probably going to be willing to take maybe a little bit less to come back to the Warriors, though I'm not sure why that would matter outside of tax dollar reasons, but maybe he does. But the difference is I think, teams are going to want Klay next year versus Draymond.
Yeah, but how much, man?
That's up to Klay, right? Maybe that's the difference between taking a couple $1 million less. Like, how much does Klay actually want to be paid? 34 versus if the Warriors offer him 28, right? Like, what is that big of a difference to him if a team offers him like that $5 million, $6 million difference?
Sure.
I don't know. Maybe you multiply that by 4. Now we're talking.
Do you think? I think the bigger thing right now is I don't know that anyone's offering Klay like 34, 35. So, but that changes really quick if he comes in healthy and plays like Klay Thompson. That's the thing, right? Like, it's one of those things where I don't know who's really trying to sign a 33-year-old going to be 34 next year, Klay Thompson, who kind of looked like he was declining in the playoffs.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, yeah, I agree.
So I just think it's going to play out in kind of a slow fashion. That kind of brings us to our big Warrior question of the episode. We're doing one of these every episode, as you guys know. Will Klay bounce back to All-Star form? Not better than last year. All-Star. Will Klay be an All-Star this year?
No. No. No, he will not be an All-Star this year because he is not an All-Star anymore. That is not who he is. If Klay was an All-Star, if he was as good as that guy, the Warriors would be a true title contender, probably be the title favorite if he was that guy, right? Because he'd be an elite defender, especially in one-on-one, and offensively, he'd be in incredible shape. But no, he's not going to be an All-Star this year. But I don't know if the Warriors need him to be like an All-Star. Maybe they – can I cut this in the middle? They need him to be 25% better than he was last year. He needs to be better defensively. He needs to be able to, I would say like shoot better, but that doesn't really make sense because he's always just going to be able to shoot well. Sometimes his variance. So maybe it's just, is he just going to be a better shape player this season? I think those are the things that probably matter the most. Is he more bought in felt like him and Poole had a bunch of issues last year playing together. Never felt like they enjoyed or played together well. Maybe they enjoyed it, but they certainly weren't great together. So does that change this year? Poole's obviously gone, and they've got Chris Paul. So how does that work? Is the chemistry there, right? Because the best versions of the Warriors always have a Klay Thompson that's just in rhythm and confident and hot. And I don't know, we didn't see that much the end of last season or the beginning of last season. So I don't think he's going to be an all-star though, Sam. What do you think?
I'm putting up a stat right here for those who are listening on pod. Klay's stats in 2014, 15, and 15, 16. So when he was an all-star, but no Kevin Durant, and his stats last year. And they're eerily similar. Last year, he averaged 21.9 points per game. Those 2 years, he combined for 21.9 points per game. 2.4 assists versus 2.5 assists. Actually got more rebound. I mean, it doesn't really rebound. But the point I'm getting at here is I'm not convinced the statistical output's different. I think the difference is he going to play smarter? Because if he plays smarter,
that's a good point,
and they are a 2 seed, he'll be an all-star. That's my take. If he's averaging 22 points a game on a team who's pacing for 60 wins, he'll make an all-star team. Whether he deserves it or not is a debatable topic, but I would keep pointing out, man, the guy is able to be the number 2 option on a highly winning team. And maybe you guys need to redefine what matters in the game of basketball sometimes. And so I think it's possible. I really do think it's possible, but a lot of it depends on external characteristics here. Because he's not going to make an all-star team because he's
the great defensively or whatever. Yeah, people don't give a shit.
Or just like an Instagram, like the Instagram, like, oh, look at these highlights. Like Klay's not a highlight player. He just gets hot. And if they're winning, people are like, damn, that dude's hard to guard. You know, he gets it that way. Like I even remember it when the Warriors were at the peak of their dynasty. People are like, well, you know, yeah, they win a lot of games, but like, would you rather have Klay or would you rather have, insert player who dribbles the shit out of the ball?
CJ McCollum could be one of those guys. I mean, that's direct guy. Yeah,
sure. And the point was like, well, he's not as diverse as those guys. And it's like, well, if you win, it doesn't really matter. So I don't know. I'm going to be optimist Sam, although I'll always be called the world's biggest pessimist. I think Klay has a bounce back year. I think he's the type of person who responds to last season that way. Now, whether they should pay him for that is a different conversation, but I feel good about it.
You also can argue all-star in your definition is actual all-star, whether he gets voted in as an all-star or not. All-star to me was Klay being an all-star back in 2014, 15, 16, right? Like those days, that level of Klay Thompson is what I think of. I don't think of today's version of NBA all-star, which damn near seems attainable to half the league at this point, because it's like Major League Baseball, right? People are gonna be out, you get a new guy, yeah, whatever. So I'm with you. I guess I'm more interested in him kind of finding who he was years before, because this should be the best version of Klay Thompson in the last 5 years. Yeah, this should be the best version of him. And I know that year after he just came back and they won the championship and he hit a couple big shots, that was great. I thought he was amazing, which is why you and I were so hyped up. Him coming in next season, he's gonna be even better. But then he kind of had a slump. It looked like he had some mental issues with coming back.
Yeah, he kind of took a step back.
Yeah, which I guess we didn't see coming, but these things aren't linear, so that's fair. So maybe this is the year that it's more linear. You're saying he's going to be 33, 34, but you know how NBA players now play forever. And he's a guy that works so hard. I can imagine him. Like he's not screwing around in the offseason, this offseason either, right? Like he's not in Cabo messing around. He's been working out, man. Like he's not James Harden. He's not any of these. None of these guys are. Chris Paul works super hard. Draymond, Steph, all these guys. Jordan Poole.
By the way, one last point on Klay. Klay's always been around the right things. I don't like the narrative that like Klay's selfish. Come on, man. He's been the same dude his entire career. He takes shots. That's never changing. I don't think you'll ever find a player who's more confident in his ability to shoot the ball. And he should be confident in his ability to shoot the ball. He's one of the 3 best shooters of all time. Maybe 2 best shooters. Like literally the only guy I will say is a better shooter than Klay Thompson is Steph Curry. other than that, I mean, isn't it kind of like pick your poison, Klay versus Ray Allen, Klay versus Reggie Miller? Like it's not a there. You can't make a scientific case anyone other than Steph Curry is a better jump shooter than Klay Thompson. So I'm always going to be okay with that. Other than that, the dude, I mean, you want to talk about like Doberman just chasing around the other team's best player for a decade and never caring about any of the praise. He's not one of those guys who cares about that sort of stuff.
Yeah, that's the one. Yeah.
I don't think you're going to find a guy who's more committed to just winning than him in general. And you know what? If he's washed, he's washed, but it's not going to be because of ego. And that's always the thing that kind of drives me insane. You know, one day his body's not going to just be able to function at the level he wants it to, but it's not going to be because he pulls like we keep talking about James Harden. He's not. It's not like that. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, which also I think will bring us back to the winning means everything to Klay, which is why I think he will. There's a less than 1% chance I think he ends up somewhere else after.
Yeah.
Let's throw up this comment before we get to the next topic from Judith here, because I think a lot of Warriors fans sometimes feel this way too. I think it's fair, maybe not fair. I don't know, but she I think says those bad shots were selfish. I tend to disagree because I think you can argue that his mentality is selfish. That's who he is, but that has made Klay Thompson so great his entire career, right? And when he was making those shots, when he was when he took those same shots against OKC in Game 6 and saved the Warriors, brought them back. When he made those same shots against Houston, Game 6, they were down 3-2 against Houston and down 15 at home. I was at that game. Klay was taking some crazy-ass shots and making them. You could argue those are selfish shots. He just made them. They won a championship that year. They beat OKC, which then turns into Kevin Durant coming to the Warriors, right? Like those two seismic games, I think, moments in Klay's career, then you can bring up all the other Game 6 stuff. That's just who Klay has always been. Last year, he just missed those shots, right? He just missed. He takes the same shots.
If you want to
miss them.
If you want to say he's selfish, it's selfish to be out of shape.
Sure.
I don't think it's selfish to shoot those shots. I'm willing to hear Klay criticism, and I think it's completely justified. But the dude is one of the best shooters of all time. I'm not going to be mad at him shooting the ball. To me, selfish basketball has more to do with you trying to protect yourself from criticism and wanting things to be about you. If Klay wanted to protect himself from criticism, he would have taken half the shots he took. That's the way I look at it. Like, now you could say he's insane and, he needs to have his head checked for taking some of the shots he took. Fair. Not going to disagree with you there. But I just hate calling him selfish. To me, selfish is a guy who isn't giving it for his team and is looking for reasons to. I'm probably not explaining it to the best of my ability, but they're looking for reasons to look good versus play well.
It happens all the time in the NBA. The NBA is probably, and look, I watched football. We are all watching football every Sunday. Is that kind of the least selfish sport out of all the big three sports in America? That would probably be the least selfish one. Out of all the three.
And I just want to call out Judith's comments here. She's correct. Those bad shots killed the team's. Like, he played poorly.
Yep.
Neither Andy or I are going to disagree with you there. I fundamentally believe he's about the right thing, which I think is worth calling out. And who knows? It might be done. He might be done as a player, but I tend to believe he's got it in him to bring it back.
They've all got a couple runs in them left. I think we definitely agree on that. They were still in a second round team with a mess of the year that they had. They won the championship a year before. None of these guys have crazy injuries coming into the season like this. They've got a couple runs left. It's just a matter of like how good can they actually be though together. Like that's the question, right? So, which is to the question that we're trying to answer today: is Klay going to be good enough to bounce back to All-Star form? And that's one of the big questions of the year, because if he is, shoot. Oh man, they are going to be rolling.
To your football point, I feel like that's why I feel really optimistic about the Niners this year, because they're a very unselfish team.
Yeah.
Selfish teams don't have receivers blocking downfield. Like that's a very receivers blocking downfield is a tell of an unselfish team. You know, like just throw me the ball or I'm going to walk. That's selfish team. Debo or Juwan Jennings running to lay someone out when they don't get the ball. That's unselfish, you know?
Yeah. I mean, yeah. Oh, sorry. Go ahead.
And I was just going to be like, to take it back to Klay. I've seen Klay run off screens for hours on end when he doesn't get the ball. You know, like he's always kind of a team guy, even if sometimes his shot selection isn't where you want it.
Yeah. Same goes for Draymond. He has his selfish moments. Same goes for Paul. Probably the only guy that I would say is not selfish, or maybe should be more selfish, is Steph Curry. But we know that. We know that. The question of the quarterback. I don't think any big questions involve Steph Curry. I think we know what Steph Curry is going to be next season, as he is every season.
We got one more topic.
All right.
So we got the Dwight news on Friday. We broke it down on the emergency pod. And I was just curious where people landed on the idea of a center versus a big wing, because we all thought they were going to sign Rudy Gay or Juan Toscano-Anderson, kind of like a backup Draymond, a backup Kuminga, one of those type of guys, like different skill sets, but same idea. And so I threw the poll out there and I asked, what would you rather have? And the poll was pretty decided. Traditional center, 51% versus big wing, 38%. And so I ask you, Andy Lou, all things equal, if I tell you the Warriors are going to add one player to this roster and just one, and be clear, they can add two, but let's say it's just one, what do you think is a bigger need?
I think that I'm gonna give you an
we hedging
because I'm an asshole. Yeah, I was gonna say I'm so one, I think their bigger need is a big wing. Like they actually need a big wing to be good for them. The problem with that, like the team functions better if they have a good big wing. Number one. The issue with that is I don't think there's any good big wings out there for them unless they're trading for someone. So it's not possible. So I think
not a September veteran minimum guy.
Impossible. That guy should have already been got, or you trade Chris Paul to trade down to get that. So I would answer, and I voted on this, I would answer traditional center, because then I would think that you can get a big man that can eat up minutes for Looney and Draymond, which then I think is more possible and then also very important to this team. And then the last thing is Jonathan Kuminga and Moses Moody. Maybe more so Jonathan Kuminga. You got to figure it out. You got to there is not that many players on this team where you're not going to be able to play 25 minutes a game. Every game, 82 games. So that's my. Could they use a bigger wing? Yes, because we don't know anything about Kuminga and Moody and these guys. But at the same time, Kuminga, let's figure this out. And maybe he already has. He was a good last season too, so maybe he's already figured it out. Maybe he just needs to play more. But I think that they probably need a bigger wing more. But I think it's better for them to get a traditional center because there are no wings out there. So.
You bring up Kuminga. I think that's the most interesting point, because the first reply I got here, and just to be clear, a lot of people think this way, and I just want to pull it up. Mm-hmm. Kevin goes, Kuminga is the bigger wing. And I keep thinking about it, and you're right. Like at this stage of the season, you're more likely to find a center who can give you 10 minutes a game than you are to find a wing who can give you 10 minutes a game. And just so we're clear, I'm talking about 10 playoff minutes a game. I think potentially Dwight, Dedmon, they can give you 8 to 10 playoff minutes a game. There's not a wing out there right now who's giving you 8 to 10 playoff minutes a game. And so it points to your point, which is Kuminga needs to be that extra wing. If not, they got to go shopping at the trade deadline. Yep. Because you're not going to find a guy who can do the things you want, which is namely be a switchable defender and a versatile defender, but also a guy who can rebound and play some form of a role in offense. They don't need to be a spot up shooter or a ball handler per se, but they need to be able to do something in some capacity, right? And yeah, I mean, I think I agree with you. I think I'm with you. Get yourself, like, if Dwight's in good shape and he looks like the guy he was 2 years ago, maybe that's the move. And you open up the minutes for Kuminga, and it's kind of like, dude, you have till the All-Star break to prove you're willing to be a winning player. And if not, probably gonna have to move you for that guy who can be that eighth man in the rotation. Because
come on down, Brandon Ingram.
But I mean, isn't that reality? Like, we know the starting lineup. You know, Chris Paul is going to be in the playoff rotation. You know, GP2 is going to probably be a playoff player. You got Dario Saric. It's a playoff player. They need a bigger wing for you to feel like, okay, that's like a solid playoff rotation. And like sometimes that bigger wing starts and Ludi comes off the bench. That type of thing. And they're really kind of giving those minutes to Kuminga right now. They just really are.
The chat's really good today. Raymond brings up OG as someone for the Warriors. I counter with this. What can OG Anunoby do that Jonathan Kuminga can't? Right? OG Anunoby's a great one-on-one defender, but he's not this Kawhi Leonard defender. Like, why can't Kuminga do what OG's doing? OG's not this great scorer. He's not this great playmaker. He's not this great, like, he's a fine shooter. Kuminga can do all those things, right? And that is the perfect fit for the Warriors. To your point, why can't Kuminga do that? Now, you know, there are always going to be things about Kuminga where it's like, well, I haven't got my money. I want to be able to shoot the ball more. I want to be able to dribble. But hey, look, man, it is what it is. You're on this team that wants to win a championship. It's going to be tough for you to play the way that you want, right? OG knows his role, plays his role. Yeah, so maybe that's the difference. Maybe it's just mindset. Maybe that's the difference. But I don't know if we know that about Kuminga yet. So I think, yeah, maybe he has a chance to figure that out this season.
And isn't you know, how many different episodes have we done talking about Chris Paul? Like, I'm just ready to see him play at this point because I'm tired of doing the concern troll conversation about whether he'll buy in coming off the bench, you know. But as far as I'm concerned, I really do think Chris Paul will help this team because he knows how to win. Yes, he's older. He's not the player he once was, but he knows how to play basketball. Kuminga is the one wild card to me, and he will continue to be the wild card because he has the skill set that no one else on this bench unit does, and they need it. They need a guy who's an athlete. They need another Wiggins type. They need an OG type. They need one of those bigger wings who you can throw on LeBron for a few minutes, who can provide athleticism, we can do different things. And yeah, I feel like he's the bigger, I don't want to say question mark, but the bigger wild card than Chris Paul for me.
Yeah. I would disagree. Just off the court stuff. But on the court, you're right. On the court, Kuminga's the way bigger question mark. Like you said, Chris Paul is Chris Paul if he's on the court. Who knows how it's going to go on and off the court, especially, right? But yeah, Kuminga, like, we don't know. He might take a leap. Do we have any? You know, I'm sure we got some more questions coming up, so he will come up in those questions, right? But how far the Warriors go this season may not be primarily based on how good Kuminga can be, but if Kuminga takes a big leap, this team is if he takes an Austin Reeves leap, right? How good Austin Reeves was, how good he got, man. The Lakers are now such a real team. They've got a third, fourth guy. Can Kuminga take that type of leap to be the third, fourth, fifth guy?
I want to give our guy William Mitchell a shout out here because I think this is the perfect way to think about it. We need Joku to be closer to year 3 HB to win a chip. If you can tell me he's Harrison Barnes, I'm going to advise you all to put money down in Vegas. I won't refund you if they lose, but I feel very confident saying it the whole way through. If he can be Harrison Barnes, I feel so good about this team's ability to get back to what they were 2 years ago and potentially win a title.
Yeah, that's a tough one. Just because I felt like Harry B was always willing to play a role, a good role player. It kind of felt like he knew who he was going to be and what his limitations were. You never felt, whenever you got angry at Harry B, it was like, oh, you missed a shot, right? It was never like, oh, he tried to do something stupid. He took a shot out of structure, or he did this that he shouldn't have done. It always felt like, well, he just missed a shot. He just missed 2 shots. Now he's 5 for 32 in the NBA Finals. Like that. That was
enough.
Kind of what he was. Kind of
enough.
But he was smart enough to know that he was a very good defender.
He was a team guy.
Yeah. Boil it down to that. Yeah.
Sometimes you don't need to make it more complicated than that, right?
Like, boil it down to
team,
that. No,
team guy. Klay Thompson, team guy. James Harden, strip club guy. We'll leave it on that. All right. Appreciate everyone for listening. We'll be back. Andy's going to take an episode off here. Going out of town, leaving the country. Hopefully comes back. All right. Say anything. All right. Appreciate everyone.
Surprise guest. All right, man.